I started programming when I was about 10 years old. I built computers for people in my church when I was 16, got into technology startups, and I've been building stuff for the iPhone since the first iPhone. We were always on the cutting edge of new technology. That's really where we wanted to be. I built this game. It was really successful. It was crazy. We were scaling to, I think we had 200,000 daily active users. Took another round of funding, built an app called Gowalla, and it was a geolocation app. Moved to Austin, hired 30 people, built to about 2 million users, and then Facebook took the geolocation company. That was their purchase. AI has, I think, changed the game, and it writes really good code.
Are you finding that it ever makes mistakes consistently, or is it pretty good at not doing that?
No, it definitely makes mistakes. One of the biggest things you have to watch out for is...
My name is Abel, and I'm an 18-year-old entrepreneur. It's my mission to learn the most essential skills for living a meaningful life. And I'm going to do that by talking to different successful people on this podcast. Enjoy.
Hey, John, thanks for jumping on the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about some essential skills. From your vast experience of success, I wanted to just kind of find your opinion on what are some of the most essential skills that young people should be learning. So if we could just start off with you giving yourself a little intro, kind of telling our audience who you are, and then we'll jump into it from there.
Yeah, hey, it's great to be here. Really appreciate you having me on. So I'll give a little history about my past and my experience. So I was a homeschool kid and got interested in computers at a young age. And so I started programming when I was about 10 years old. And so that was, my dad got me a quick basic book. I was like, well, this is now part of your school, right? And so I cracked that open, started programming. I loved the idea of being able to build something, start from nothing and build something on the computer, right? So from there, I built computers for people in my church when I was 16 and just really loved all things technology. And then I also played baseball. So I had an opportunity to go play ball at DBU, Dallas Baptist University. And then I also got a job offer at Accenture, which was at the time Anderson Consulting. They were a big global consulting firm. And so that was a real big crossroads for me. It's like, man, do I want to play baseball a lot? Right? Or do I want to start on this career path in the world of technology? So I took the path of Accenture, and which I think was such a great decision for me. I loved baseball, but I didn't love it that much, right? And so I started programming more there, started building CTI and IVR technology, so call center technology, with you call in and you punch things in on the phone and it does database lookup. And I built that for an internal support team for Accenture. And then we started selling it to Accenture's clients globally. So I ended up with a big team. And my last project was over in Ireland. We did a project for Vodafone, who's the largest technology or telecom company in Europe. So it was a big project, big client, but man, corporate life wasn't really for me. I didn't love how slow things moved, all the bureaucracy. It wasn't how I wanted to do things. It took so long to build. So, and there's reasons, I understand the reasons for a lot of the red tape. But yeah, so then I left Accenture and got into technology startups. This was in '04. And so, man, that was, it was new and exciting and we were moving fast. I joined with a buddy of mine who was a designer. So he was a great designer. I was a developer, and we just started building tools. Building Web 2.0 was a thing, and so we started building things on the web. Then the iPhones came out, and I've been building stuff for the iPhone since the first iPhone. And so we were always on the cutting edge of new technology. That's really where we wanted to be. And so we started taking some funding. We built one of the first games on the Facebook app platform. We took a round of funding from Founders Fund, who was Sean Parker and Peter Thiel. It was right when Founders Fund started, and it was, closely tied to Facebook because Sean Parker, Facebook is his thing. So took a round of funding there. I built this game. It was really successful. It was crazy. We were scaling to, I think we had 200,000 daily active users. So lots of users, and then took another round of funding, built an app called Gowalla, and it was a geolocation app. So the iPhones put the GPS chip in the phone, And we're like, oh man, there's so much we can do with this, right? Took some funding, moved to Austin, hired 30 people, built to about 2 million users. And then we got acquired by Facebook back in I think it was 2012.
The GPS thing or the game
Yeah.
or both?
Yep. Well, so we actually sold off some of the other companies as well during that time, but Facebook took the geolocation company. That was their purchase. So,
Okay.
and then moving to San Francisco, I have a lot of kids. I have 9 kids. So
It's a lot.
yeah, we homeschool, and it's just our life was not the life of a technology person working for Facebook. I mean, it's all encompassing. You work all the time. It just wasn't in the cards for us. So I moved back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and just started building my own things, starting companies, had a team, built a team locally here, and have just been doing that ever since. So
Man, and what's kind of the stuff you're working on right now? Are you still in technology, I'm assuming?
yeah. So, it's interesting because what I would have said on this podcast, talking about what I did tell people to do before, has changed a lot now that AI has entered the picture, right? So AI has, I think, changed the game drastically. And so, I used to tell people, hey, if you want to get into this, you should learn how to program. You should learn languages and understand how all of these things work,
Right.
because knowing the language and being able to write code was a very important part of being able to build things. But with AI, now writing the code is really easy. And so yeah, I am still building, but I have downsized my team, and I am now using AI agents as developers, and I'm moving so fast
Really?
because, it's just, and I mean, because my background is programming and I've done a lot of database stuff and scaling and DevOps and all of the things that go along with building and scaling apps. Since I understand that, it's really easy for me to go and tell agents what I want and how I want things built. So I think having a foundational understanding of the technology world, understanding databases, understanding good programming, like basics, right,
Right.
is still very good. You just don't have to know and get really good at the languages, because it doesn't really matter anymore. You can use one of many different languages or frameworks without having to spend a lot of time learning it, because you can just go tell AI, hey, I want you to use this new language that I really don't know much about, but I do know what I want to build, and I know what to look out for from a
Right.
security standpoint, or, just from a product standpoint. And so I think being able to direct AI is kind of the new world, right? And learning how to do that well.
So I assume that you're pretty good at prompting your agents to do the exact things you want them to do. Do you come up with those prompts yourself, or do you have AI also come up with its own prompts for itself?
I do a little bit of both. So I use tools like Cursor and Anti-Gravity, which is Google's new kind of development environment. So
Okay.
AI is built into your code base. So you see all your files. It has context. It can load in all your files. It can connect to your database. It has a good understanding of your entire project. And that's the environment that all programmers would work in. But now you have this agent alongside of you. And so I can say, hey, I want to add this feature, and it's connected to this screen, and I want to put a checkbox here that connects to these tables in the database, and blah, blah, blah. And then it just builds a plan, and then I review it, and then I make tweaks, and I say, yep, looks good. And then it builds it in like a couple of minutes. And it writes really good code, probably better code than definitely better code than I would write at this point.
Are you finding that it ever makes mistakes consistently, or is it pretty good at not doing that?
No, it definitely makes mistakes. So one of the biggest things you have to watch out for is, and this is why having an understanding of programming principles in general is good, because it'll make a lot of assumptions. And if you don't know how to review code, because it doesn't really matter the language, it's pretty easy to follow the logical progression of code. You can kind of see it's like, this is not what I wanted here. And it'll say, sorry about that. I assumed all of these things.
Right.
And so you do have to be careful. So there's a big trend right now, vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
And it's people that have no experience with building apps or tools, right? And so you can get pretty far down the road, right? It can design well, it can hook things up, but to go from a vibe coded app that you're just playing around with to something that's launched and is available to people in a production state is a very different thing, right?
Yeah.
You run into bugs, or everything starts getting slow because you didn't use good principles for databases, and so if you don't know what to tell it to do about it, it'll just start making decisions and be like, oh, we'll try this,
Right.
and then you'll end up in a really bad place when you're trying to support a production app and scale it. And if you have paying customers, they start getting mad, right? Because things aren't
Right.
working. And so that's a rough place to be.
And to
so,
clarify,
yeah.
vibe coding, that's just using AI to write your code for
Yeah.
you, right?
So yeah, let's say you had an idea of, you're like, man, I really wish an app existed to do this thing, right? It's like, I want to take a picture of all of my baseball cards and I want it to, create like a I don't know, like a library of them, right? You could just start telling AI, hey, I want to build this app and this is what I want it to do. And you just describe it and it will start to build it for you. And you'll just say, oh, I don't really like that. I want you to make it more like this. And you can just sit there and have natural language conversation with AI.
Right.
And it's building it in the web. So you have a little web page and you can see everything and you can refresh the screen and you can see it all happening. So it's a cool way to get concepts and ideas for things that are in your head out into the world, which I love. Like, I love that that's become more accessible to everyone. But then there's still a gap between, all right, I have this thing that I've built and it looks good and it functions well, but then you start getting a lot of other people on it and there's a whole other set of problems you're going to run into that starts to get kind of dicey. That's not to say you can't do it, right? It's just, there's this, I guess what I'm trying to explain is, and I think one of the most important things in all of business is you really have to understand enough to be able to direct things well, right? So if you don't know anything about database indexes and how to make a database fast, then you don't really know what kind of prompts to give AI.
Right.
Or if it suggests something to you, you may be like, I mean, I have no idea, right? So yeah, let's try it and see. You're just kind of rolling the dice a lot. And I think that is not the place you want to be with AI, where it's driving the train, right? It's steering the ship. You want to be the one that's like, okay, I need to be able to tell it and direct it well. And so I think that as people want to continue to get into technology and build apps and really understand that, I think it's really good to understand, it's still good to understand programming principles and database principles and understand how APIs work. And there's just some really basic things that are really important for that kind of craft. And so, but man, that can be done so much faster. Because, if you were going to go get a comp sci degree at a college, right, you would spend a lot of time learning programming languages and you would be handwriting, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it used to take so much time to get to the point where you could write code really well. And that's the thing you don't really need anymore. So there's kind of this accelerated learning curve to getting to where you can effectively build an app and actually direct it well, because you learn concepts. And I mean, there's so much on YouTube that you can learn from about how people are writing prompts and how people are using the new tools and shortcuts for getting things to work effectively and to work better.
Right.
Which is really cool. And so there is an accelerated path to learning now, and everything is so much more accessible. But I think it would be a mistake to think about it in terms of like, I don't have to learn anything. I can just let AI do it. Right.
Don't get lazy with it.
Yeah. It's like, you still really need to dig in and understand concepts so that you can be a good director. Right.
And would you say that code, well, especially since it's so much easier now with AI, would you say that understanding databases and coding principles and just how to navigate the online creation space, is that something that you think all young people should really develop so that they at least have an understanding? Or is that only if you're interested in developing apps?
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think it's good to have that understanding because I think we're entering a time to where you will no longer hire a development company, like an app company to build you a tool. I think, and people are already doing this. They're like, man, I need a tool that does this thing. So I'm just going to go vibe code it and it does this work for me. And they're not even doing it as an app to go sell to people. They're just building it to help them with their current job. Right. So
Right.
I think that's why it's important to understand some of these principles, because you can build really good tools for yourself. And what works for you will also work for other people, right? This is where I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to build tools that, like, let's say you're in the, I don't know, you work in insurance, right? In auto insurance. And there are these tasks that you have to do as a broker that just take a lot of time, and it's a lot of manual number crunching or looking up information. Well, you could use AI to do a lot of that work for you, aggregate it into one place, do reviews of it, and then present something that you could review before you send it off to your client, let's say. Well, that tool would be very valuable because it would save you a lot of time, and you could make sure it was really accurate, and it would probably do a better job than you could of finding really good options and vetting things, taking the unique situation of the client that they might have and plugging that into the equation. And it would make suggestions for you, and you might, and so this could be a really good tool for you internally as an insurance agent. And then you could say, man, I know other insurance agents that would love to have this, right? So let me just package this up as an enterprise tool and see if my parent company wants to use it, right? Or maybe I just give it to some of my friends who are also in the insurance space, and they pay me, a couple $100 a month to use it or whatever, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of that type of thing, and it can be for a very, very specific need across industries. Whereas before, when you had to hire a company and build a product and put all this money into it, you had to solve a problem in a broader way. And then, inevitably people would be like, man, I really wish it would do this, and I wish it would do this. And you're like, okay, well, that's on our roadmap. But, it's just like more time, more money. And we have to make sure we're making enough money to justify that. Because it's so cheap to get something built and so fast, there's not a lot at stake for building a great tool for a very specific problem. So, and that doesn't take a company, right? Or someone who's been programming for years like me. You wouldn't have to hire me to go build you this tool, right? So I think that people who have been programming like me, I think there's an opportunity to take kind of the final mile and say, all right, you got this great tool. Now you need to get it into a production ready state, right? So let me take it and help you finish, right? And then make sure it stays running and scales and all of those things.
Yeah.
Also with the help of AI. So I think that's where the experience of people that have done it before and are currently in school for computer science degrees, or have just started trying to get into this world, and all of a sudden there's no developer jobs. I think having a deep understanding of how it works, there's still a lot of room to help people get something that they've started, but then kind of finish it, right?
So like I'll say like a year ago, actually, I was trying to teach myself how to code because I don't have any background in that. And I thought that would be a valuable skill. So what I was doing, I found this website called Free Code Camp. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Yeah.
I was just coding on there. I started with HTML, and then I went to CSS. And then I like barely started Python too at the end there. And I was just trying to get familiar with some of the different languages because I wanted to build stuff and just understand what I was looking at when I worked with different things, whenever it comes to even just, making FBX files for artistic CGI, stuff like that. I wanted to be able to know what that meant. But kind of toward the end of when I was doing that, it started fading off because the work didn't seem necessary considering the fact that AI was taking over so much of the actual typing. And I'm just curious, do you think that it is still valuable for people to learn how to physically code, or do you think it'd be more valuable to just know how it works but not spend the time to develop the skills of coding every little detail?
Yeah, so I think that understanding a little bit of code, like what you were doing, I think is really good because you kind of learned, all right, this is how it all works, right? Like just in the process of writing code, creating your first Python script, running it on the command line, right? Seeing how you can connect to like a port on your browser when you're running a local server. Those things are really good to know because AI is going to do all that for you, but then you know how to troubleshoot, and it's really good to understand how those pieces are connected. I think the only way to really do that is to get into the code a little bit. But once you have a good understanding about architecturally how it all works and how it all hooks together, I think that's all you need. So you don't have to go deeper. You don't have to spend hours writing code and learning how loops work and learning how recursion works and learning like functional programming versus like object-oriented programming. And like, there's all this stuff. It's like, I don't think that stuff is really very valuable anymore, depending on what it is you're building. I mean, if you want to go build a system, I don't know, for like national security or for like Walmart, who's going to do like, they do millions of credit card processing transactions every few seconds. I mean, it's bonkers. So
Wow.
if you're going to be working at like enterprise level, they're not using AI. They have really good engineers that understand those really complex things, right? So definitely, I mean, aerospace, like government, large corporations, they are not trusting their businesses to AI anytime soon, right? But that doesn't mean that those really skilled programmers aren't using AI to help them just speed up the process, but they are very much vetting all of the code that is getting created. And you wouldn't really be able to do that if you didn't understand how it all worked. Right. So I think those are the two things that you really have to think about and balance. It's like if you're wanting to, just create things and see if you can get the general public to use them, and they're just these, small tools that aren't super business impacting, to people or businesses, you probably don't need a lot of that. But if you get into a place where, there's people paying you and you're like, yeah, this is a business tool and these businesses are using it, and you push a bug because AI wrote bad code and it exposes you from a security standpoint.
Right.
Well, that's back on you. You can't blame the AI, right?
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on, how serious your app is going to be. And one nice thing is, I mean, let's say you built an app and it's some random thing that the public starts using and it starts growing. You then will have income to go hire developers and, DevOps people that are going to manage your servers, and because you're going to have people trying to hack you. The bigger you get, the more you have to pay attention to a lot of that stuff, because unfortunately there's always the people that want to like try to mess everything up, right?
Right.
And they want to expose, they want to exploit weaknesses and find things that are wrong. They want to try to like see if they can get your data and, hack you. So all of that stuff, I think that is where that deeper understanding really comes into play. And it's more of a liability thing where, you can be off in the middle of the ocean in a rowboat, you know what I mean? And it's like, this is not where I want to be, right? And so I would say, for just wanting to start small, startup mentality, and you're just going to try to get things out there, I think you don't need a whole lot. But if you're gonna want to scale things to millions of users and deal with all the complexity of what that's going to bring, you definitely will need to understand all of those things. And you'll need to understand code at a deeper level, because you're going to have to make sure the code is written well.
Basically, what I'm kind of hearing here is like, I guess the higher the stakes, the more hands-on you need to be with AI, because it's like a big intelligent child. Like, it has no wisdom, but it has a lot of smarts. So
yes, that's great. That's a great way to say it. And so the wisdom and experience, you definitely need to have, the higher the stakes are, for sure.
Right.